The question of who is Jesus is probably actually the biggest question you can ever ask yourself. How you answer that question defines everything else and has ripples into everything else. And so the thought I have when I think of who is Jesus, there's this story in the Gospels. It actually happens a few times, I think, but I'm thinking of Matthew, the book of Matthew towards the end, where the disciples are following Jesus. They still kind of don't really know who he is or what he's doing, or they kind of have some idea of Israel and this king that's going to come and restore all things. And then Jesus finally just flat out asks him, says, who do you think that the Son of God is going to be? Or who do you think the Messiah, who do you think the Christ is? Or who am I, he kind of says. And Peter, who's kind of like the leader of the pack, says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And then Jesus kind of freaks out and says, blessed are you, Peter. And then he goes on to say, on this rock I will build my church. But there's something really interesting that happens there if you think about it. So he said, because before that it also says that people think he is a prophet, which just means like he just is a really good teacher, which that's not just the case. He is, but he's also more. And they also say you might be John the Baptist or Elijah, all these different things. And Peter says, you're not just that, you are the Christ. You are the Son of God. You are the person that came to bring restoration and to save us from our sins. And so I don't know where you're at today, but Jesus is more than a teacher. Jesus is more than just a good example. Jesus is the Son of God that has the power to save us from our sins and bring restoration. Now, what's cool is when Peter says, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God, then Jesus tells Peter who he is, right? Now, Peter wasn't actually Peter's name. His name was Cephas, which I don't know about you, but I'd probably take Peter as well. That's not the best name, if you ask me. Probably not going to name my kid Cephas. Now, moving on. You see that when what I'm trying to say is when you tell Jesus who he rightfully is, then he tells you who you are. And only when you know who you are, when you have this identity in who God says you are, that's a beautiful place to live. And so until you tell Jesus who he rightfully is, then you'll never know who you truly are. They go hand in hand. And so I don't know where you're at today, but man, declare that Jesus is the Messiah. Declare that he is King, you are not, and then he declares who you are. He gives you a new name special from God, and that's a beautiful place to be.